the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. I'm grateful to live and work on this land and to work toward greater social justice on Turtle Island and globally. I asked for special permission from Farzana to also acknowledge all of the people who are currently putting their bodies and lives on the line in the fight for racial justice for African people on Turtle Island. And I think that's an important cause, and very glad that we've got an author and a bookstore in Another Story that are supportive of those initiatives as well. Thank you all for being here, and I especially want to thank my colleagues at Dundurn for supporting tonight's activity. In particular, Heather Wood and our marketing intern, Christina, who's working diligently in the back end of things to make sure that our live feed is working and that you're able to hear us and see us, ideally. I also wanted to take a second to say on a personal note how much Another Story's founder, Sheila Kaufman, has meant to me over my career. Sheila, she was the founder and longtime owner of Another Story before we lost her all too soon. And Sheila intervened on multiple occasions on my behalf and helping me further my career. And I don't think I would be sitting in the big chair at Dundurn without her assistance. So thank you to her and her memory, and thank you to everyone at Another Story for continuing her legacy. This event is going to, oh, excuse me, I've gone off script already. It's only 5 after. So I also want to thank the staff at Another Story, and in particular, Anjula Gogia, for her tireless efforts to promote this event and to sell books. It's not an easy business, especially during a pandemic, and those folks are doing a bang-up job over there on Roncesvalles. Another Story is coordinating signed copies of Seven. So when you do order online at Another Story, please indicate if you'd like a signed copy. The last bit of admin here is this event is going to be closed captioned in replay, and that's going to be available soon after the live show. I'd like to thank We Speak Out and the End FGMC Canada Network for sponsoring this event. I imagine you're going to be hearing more about the activism happening around this issue throughout the evening. So let's go. Yeah, I personally want to thank Farzana for sticking with Dundurn. She was working on Seven at a time when Dundurn was having major issues. I'm very happy to report that now we only have a few major issues, but that's normal in publishing. It would have been very easy for you, Farzana, to look to greener pastures, but you gave me a chance, and you gave the team at Dundurn a chance to show you what we can do. And I'll always appreciate you and your agent Rachel for that. I'm so thrilled with Seven as a reader, never mind a publisher. The opportunity that we've had to get to know one another through this project and through a few other collaborations that we've done has been a thrill in my career. And I also want to say a few words about the book itself before I turn things over. Reading Seven is a page-to-page pleasure. Farzana deals with tensions that a lot of people feel, in particular, recent immigrants, first-generation immigrants, and dealing with the tensions that a lot of us feel as we navigate the contradictions that sometimes emerge between traditional in-group sensibilities of our communities and those bumping up against, in Farzana's case, a strong sense of justice for girls and for women. And it's really rare that a book can tackle that kind of tension without coming across as heavy-handed or preachy. And I'm really, the result is, the proof is in the pudding here, that Farzana has managed to walk that difficult line with smarts and sensitivity. And it's such a rare achievement that I hope will have as big an impact on other readers as it's had on me. It's still on my mind. Excuse me. It's still on my mind weeks after having finished it, and that's always a good sign. You don't want to immediately forget a book that you've read, especially if you're the publisher. So I'm very glad that I can honestly say that I'm still wrapping my mind around this book. And then, I'd also just like to say that I've been told that sex sells, and the closest thing I'm going to get to a spoiler tonight is that there is a fantastically sexy sex scene about halfway through the book, and that's all I'm going to say. It's there. It's wonderfully written, and it's quite good. So that's a little preview of what you have to enjoy, as well as what is all in all a fantastic novel. But enough of the schmaltz. No one came here to hear me talk. I'm going to get back on script and introduce you formally to Farzana Doctor. She is the acclaimed author of 4 novels. This most recent one, 7, is the reason we're here celebrating tonight. And Farzana is also an activist, part-time psychotherapist, and amateur tarot card reader. Joining Farzana this evening is going to be Fawzia Mirza, and Fawzia Mirza is a queer Muslim Pakistani. She's the writer, creator, and director, and her first feature film, Signature Move, which she co-wrote, produced, and stars Shabana Azmi as her mother, premiered at the SXSW, screened at over 150 film festivals globally, and was the recipient of 14 awards. You can watch it on Amazon, iTunes, and YouTube. She wrote the CBS TV series The Red Line, executive produced by Greg Berlanti and Ava DuVernay. She's currently working on several TV and film projects. Her short film she wrote, directed, and starred in, I Know Her, airs on CBC on Short Film Face Off in October. And she films a short film at the end of September with CBC Gem that she wrote and will direct. And that's called Noor and Layla. Fawzia, I apologize if I butchered any of that, but you'll have a chance to elaborate. So without further ado, Fawzia, take it away. Farzana, congratulations, and I'll see you on the other end of this. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Scott. That was really lovely.
Thank you so much, Scott. I have to tell you, the only thing I was thinking about was, why didn't I cut my bio shorter? Because no one is here to listen to or think about anything that I've done or am doing. This is a night of reflection and celebration of you, Farzana Doctor. And I'm getting a little emotional because I feel so honored. I know we use that word sometimes a lot, but it really, to the truth of the word and what it is meant to convey, I'm so honored you asked me to be here and to celebrate this book of yours, 7. Thank you for, first of all, thank you for writing it. Can we just
thank you for reading it, and thank you for agreeing to do this. I'm so pleased you did.
Oh, I honestly, like, the first time, I just want to tell everyone before we dive in, like, you and I first met in Chicago. It was you, me, and Vivek Shreya on a panel about queer brown folk.
We were touring our novels, and it was Chacon, Chicago that was hosting us. And I remember you being super funny. And I thought, I need to follow this woman and like find out like more about all the ways that she's like bringing light to the world. So yeah, so we stayed in touch. It's great.
Well, I have to tell you that was my first introduction to you, but my first introduction to your work was Stealing Nasreen, and I was deeply impacted by the story. And part of that was just getting to see a lens into the South Asianness that I'm South Asian as well, and Pakistani and Muslim, but it was a different take on a relationship that I hadn't gotten to read or experience before. And so getting to read 7, and I will be honest, I both read parts of it and I listened to your audiobook.
Good.
Yeah, and I think I bought the Kindle, by the way. You know, girls, sometimes
just to advertise to our audience all of the formats it comes in.
Yes. And sometimes like you're in the mood, like you're like, oh, I want to listen, I want to read it, travel with it, and sometimes I want the book in my hand. So I have to tell you that when you asked me to do this, I didn't know the topic of the book, and you were like, Fawzia, why don't you take a look? And as someone who, as a writer creator, I believe wholeheartedly we need to talk about the things that happen to us, whether it's through comedy or the drama or the trauma or the joy and the struggle. It is all informing us of how we've become who we are. And I have to tell you, I'm so grateful that you are sharing this fictional story of Sharifa in terms of, and giving us a light of a topic that's very serious in terms of, talking about, female genital mutilation and khatna, and in a way that was both impactful and also accessible. Can I say that? Like, and I also laughed. I also appreciated the sex scene. I was also like, is this when I should be turned on? Like, I felt the range of emotions in your book. Was that intentional?
So what was intentional was trying to create a balance, because I knew that if I was going to write a book that was about something so serious and difficult, I had to have lots of lightness in there. I had to have lots of fun in there. And I like noticing pacing. When I'm doing revision, I really like noticing, how do we go like this? How do we do the roller coaster? How do we make the page turn? So that's really important. I don't feel like it's kind to let a reader sink too far down into a terrible abyss for too long before lifting them up again. So that's really important, and that is quite intentional. And I'm really glad that everybody likes that scene. It's not easy to write sex scenes without like worrying about being gratuitous or, but that was a scene that was very, very much linked to Sharifa's process and struggles.
Well, and I mean, I do have lots of questions because quite frankly, I mean, growing up South Asian, growing up Muslim, I mean, the concept of pleasure is actually elusive. You are actually not like talking, the word sex wasn't used for me growing up. And so while I am not a survivor of Khatna, I deeply related to the experience of growing up in a family or a culture or a space where you just don't talk about the things that are happening to you. You hide your feelings, and you are not supposed to experience joy through your body specifically. And as someone with a clitoris, someone who experiences, someone who like, you are not supposed to have clitoral pleasure.
You're not even supposed to say that word.
We've already broken the rules. Like,
yeah,
this
like your t-shirt says. You should show your t-shirt. So there's just shame. There's shame attached to anything that has to do with sexuality. And I have been someone, I think, who has, I really like talking about all the taboo things. I really love talking about anything taboo. I like us to normalize conversations around taboo things so that we can, breathe some light and breathe some air into these subjects. And then we can, shift all of the really crappy social norms that exist to even create the shame and to create the taboo. So talking about Khatna was really important to me. That's about stamping shame on the body. Got to talk about that, right? We got to blow some air and light into this. And then also just, general sexuality too. Yeah, I definitely grew up in a home where, if that was coming on the TV show, the channel was changed. And so that would happen quite a bit because, I started watching The Young and the Restless when I was, a very young kid.
It's okay. This is a safe space, Farzana. You can talk about it. Go on with The Young and the Restless. Bring it out. Bring it out.
Yeah, change the channel.
Oh my gosh. Do you know that I used to change the channel if my parents were with me, like if a tampon commercial came on? I was so like, I felt so much shame about the fact that we were talking about a certain part of the body, even though it was just about having a period. I was just like, oh, I can't. I got to go to I went to the bathroom so many times to the bathroom just to avoid sharing space with my parents when stuff like that came on, because it wasn't something we talked about. And, you know, just really digging into that, there's an amazing article that came out in the magazine Chatelaine, where you really go into talking about decoding your community through your writing, both this book and other books. But with this book, you have really kind of gotten the closest to that. Could you talk about that process and what that was like?
Yeah, so you know, I grew up in a family where my father had renounced the religion and my mother was pretty lukewarm, and then large extended family, some who are quite orthodox, some not. And sometimes I would be experiencing some of the Bora rituals and really not understanding what was going on. And when you ask questions, and you're not supposed to ask questions, you're not supposed to question religion. If you do, often you could get really confusing responses. So I was often in this place of really wondering, like, why do we do these things? Why are Boras different from other Muslims? And for people who don't know, Boras are a subsect of Shia Muslims based in India, but have diasporic communities everywhere. We're numbered, some people estimate between 1 and 2 million across the world. So not a very big community, very insular community.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot that I was always trying to understand. And in Stealing Nasreen, I had initially written as a kind of literary device. I had this painting on the wall that now is a Rani and her servant, but previous to that was a picture of our holy leader, also called the Sayyidina. And a couple of my aunts had said, I don't think you should write that. This might cause trouble for people back home, because you're not even supposed to poke fun. We're not even allowed to tease ourselves, right? So I dropped that, and through subsequent novels, there were already Bora characters. Maybe not all of the readers out there would know that they're Bora characters, but people from within the community might know, because we have these typical last names that end in wala. So not all of us. I don't have one of those, but yeah, but by the time I got to writing this novel, I was firmly entrenched in some activism with We Speak Out. And, you know, in that process, I was really kind of understanding more things about Boras, more things about me and the trauma that I experienced. At the same time, fully formed fictional scenes were kind of flowing out of me. And I realized that, like, now is the time to just speak out about these things. It's okay. I can talk about the community through the writing. Will it cause trouble? I don't know. Probably not. So it was just very important to me to be like, come on, let's unveil all of this. It's time. It's really time. We've got to do it. There's so much we need to talk about, the beauty of the community. And I hope I've really portrayed the beauty of the community. But we also need to talk about its problems. Like every community needs to talk about its problems. And we have some problems.
Yeah, well, and that comes across to me so clearly, the fact, and I know that, you know, it's stated in the book. I mean, too, or I can't remember if it's in the book or in the article, but just your love for who you are and where you come from and your people, the food, and the very specific Bora community. Like, you love that. I got that, and I really related to that, because, you know, even talking about queer issues for myself when I'm writing or creating, people are like, can you just stop? Can you be less loud about that? And I'm just like, I think I have to do this. What, you know, and so but I love where I come from. And, you know, even when everyone's eating, you know, Sharifa's mom comes and they're eating golgappas, and I felt like I could taste every bite, and, you know, just the love for, like, the visiting and the traveling and the, you know, I love being with Nani. I mean, these moments, these words, these memories. Yes, there are the memories that are, you know, cause the trauma, and there's so many that are why we are the beautiful part of who we are. So I deeply related to that, and I was wondering if you could, you know, because there is so much that is personal, but could you talk a little bit about, like, Because look, I know we put things that are us, but like, into our writing. But could you talk about like Sharifa, you, different people?
Yes. So
Could you
so
talk about that
Sharifa,
line?
yeah, Sharifa and all of the characters are definitely fictional characters, and it's
Yeah.
so much more fun to write fictional characters because fiction moves in a way that is so much more interesting than like reality. Like, reality is kind of boring, right? Um, and yeah, so I'll just say that. But definitely, we all have parts of self, and so there's little bits of me that are probably in all of the characters because it's my brain, right? And all of the characters are composites of people I know, including bits of me. So there's a lot of reality that's in this fiction as well. And I did definitely draw on my own experience as a survivor. I drew on my own experience as a Bora. Like I drew on all of the experiences I could find. And then I also had beta readers because I worried that I would get some of the language and religion and because I don't know everything, and the Bora references. I had 3 or 4 beta readers who were there to just be like, no, call it this instead of that, or spell it this way instead of that way. Mm-hmm.
Wow. I mean, it's like, honestly, can I toast you? Can we do a toast?
Sure. And I just want to say thank you to all the people who are out there. When we do these kinds of events, we're on stage and we can see all of you. I can see your smiling faces. Right now, we're on a platform where we can't even see the comments coming in YouTube. We'll see them later. And so there is this kind of disconnected feeling. So my partner has been telling me how many people are out there, and it's just so amazing. Like I think right now we're at about 125 people. I just really want to thank you for being out there, especially like at this weird pandemic time. And if you've got something to drink beside you, let's do a toast, all of us together. We'll make this, participatory. So,
Cheers.
hey,
To you, to your book, to your, honestly, the telling a story that we need to tell.
yeah, and to all the Bora women and survivors out there.
To all the Bora women. Yes, to the Bora women. Honestly, like I said, there is nothing like reading your book, listening to your book as well. I realized, people say South Asians are not a monolith. And it also reminded me of how many of the stories in my own family do I not know?
Mm.
Right. And it made me reflect on, I need to do more investigation. I need to know more. We all do. And that being said, I'm wondering if we could, I know, I imagine all these amazing people out there would love to hear from you and would love to hear a passage from the book.
Yes, and for everyone, I asked Fawzia to help me out and make this more interesting. Fawzia is an actor amongst all the other things that she does. So let's go.
I'm hiring Farzana as one of my managers after this.
So if anyone wants to follow along, we're going to read from page 76. And what's happening here is the protagonist, Sharifa, and her husband, Mortaza, and their daughter, Z, are now in India. And she thinks that what she's about to do in India, because she's kind of off for the year, she thinks that she's going to be homeschooling her kid and doing some research about an ancestor, a very revered ancestor in her family. And so in this scene, she and Murtaza are in bed reading. This isn't the sex scene. This is the reading scene, just for everyone to know. No one has to change the channel.
Farzana, that would be really awkward if that
would be super awkward.
And also maybe
I would change the channel, Fawzia.
It would be great. And maybe that's the next reading that we do.
I don't know. Okay, so let's start.
All right. What are you reading?
Murtaza looks over his text to mine. We're not used to this king-sized bed and the 2-foot expanse between us. I lean over and hold out the cover of Mullahs on the Mainframe. It's an anthropological text, a book based on an American's PhD dissertation. Abbas Kaka lent it to me.
Is it good?
He looks at the cover skeptically. It's decoded some of the religion for me. It's only been 2 days and I'm already on the last chapter. I've mostly understood the Bora hierarchy of royals, with our apex leader, whom we call the Saidna. However, even the most orthodox aunts and uncles haven't been able to offer explanations for our traditions besides a vague, that's just the way we do things, or because Saidna says so.
Like what?
Did you know that our Imam, who descended from the Prophet, is believed to be in hiding? That it's a tradition that began way back when Boras were being persecuted?
In hiding?
Yeah, to avoid being killed. He governs from afar through Saidna, his representative. It says here Boras believe that the Imam could be anyone amongst us, a shopkeeper or a wealthy land developer. Any of us might have bumped into him on the street or had a conversation with him and not known his secret identity. He's undercover, I say dramatically.
No way. That's what we believe?
He narrows his eyes. Yeah, I'm amused that Murtaza has used the first person plural. Perhaps Mumbai, the lap of our community, has rubbed off on him, but within moments, his expression shifts from disbelief to devilishness.
Maybe I'm him.
Murtaza jokes. I laugh along with him, but uneasily, an irrational wave of sacrilegious fear rippling through me. You know, it's funny, we all have photos of the Sayyidina, but he's not even our Imam, but his rep. In reality, I shake my head. Like most immigrant Bora families, we had a framed photo of the Sayyidina on our Edison living room wall. As a teenager, I'd often felt his assessing gaze upon me when I sat on the couch watching Knots Landing or The Bold and the Beautiful. See, I fictionalized. I didn't say Young and the Restless.
Right in the Restless.
The Bold and the Beautiful. His picture was modestly sized in 11 by 7, only slightly larger than our Sears family portrait and my annual school photos. When I brought home friends, they assumed he was an older relative. Wow, your grandfather has a long beard, my neighbor Sarah once exclaimed, and Mom and I only nodded. Perhaps we continue our Imam tradition of staying undercover too.
I noticed your mom didn't hang one when she moved into the condo.
Huh, that's true. I wonder what she did with it.
Goodwill?
We return to our reading. Within minutes, I finish the book. Then I scan the dozens of pages of glossary, notes, bibliography, and index, and study the handsome author's photo on the back flap. As I often like to do, a game since childhood, I close my eyes and flip the pages to a random spot. It opens to page 56 and 57. I read the heading Circumcision, which describes the commonplace practice of male babies, foreskin removal shortly after birth, and a celebratory ceremony that takes place at age 7, the boys wearing a garland of flowers around their heads. I read further to the section about female circumcision.
Female circumcision among the Boras, as among some other Muslim denominations, is a matter of great controversy. Sources within the community have given me wildly conflicting testimony. I have at various times been told the custom is absolutely forbidden, that it is occasionally carried out in secret, and that most Bora girls are subjected to it.
I consider taking a photo of the confusing paragraph and sending it to Fatima, but then changed my mind. I'm not sure I want to discuss the topic with her. Thank you. Thank you.
I don't want to give anything away, but I will say this morning I called Farzana and I had a conversation on the telephone, and I just said to her, girl, you got me. You got me. I was really impacted. And I know I said this to you then, but just to share with everyone, I was really impacted by where the book went and where you left us, how you left us. And quite honestly, the way you're going to find out, because no spoilers here, you got to buy the book. You got to buy the book. by the Audible, by whatever helps and facilitates you. But you have to get to this story. I mean, it really talks about how deep intergenerational story is, how intergenerational trauma is, and also intergenerational joy and love. I mean, it's really woven through so brilliantly and beautifully. So, yeah, I mean, there's words and phrases, by the way, in your book that deeply impacted me. And quite honestly, one of the things, because I have another question, I want to talk about the women, but the fact that male circumcision was compared as the same thing in this, it's so clearly the patriarchy, it's so clearly misogyny, and the way the trauma is normalized as just like, it's no big deal, it's a nick. It felt like hazing. Like it felt like hazing culture in the West. So when you talk about like everybody has this, yeah, everyone does have this. This is so normalized in Western white space as well in very different ways. And one of them is, that kind of hazing. So
yes, every culture gaslights its women and non-binary folks, right? Like every culture does this.
yeah.
That didn't really happen. That's not a big deal. And again, so that's why we have to break open the taboos, right? Because actually that was a big deal.
Yeah.
That is problematic. And yeah.
Well, could you talk a little bit about the different kinds of women we get to meet in the book? Because there are very different shades of women. And I love that because, again, it's representative of people, South Asians, Bora people, brown women. No, it's not a binary. There's not just one kind of person in these spaces. Could you talk a little bit about the kinds of women you really wanted to represent here?
Yeah, I think I wanted to have a really nuanced approach to all of this because, as Scott said earlier, like you don't want to write a novel that is going to hit people over the head with an issue. You want to write a novel that's about stories, and then you interweave all of the issues inside. Like it's a sneaky way of getting the issues inside. So there are a number of women characters. There's also some men, but in terms of the women, I wanted to have women who were like on all sides of this issue. So, Sharifa is kind of clueless through most of the book and is trying to figure out how she feels about this issue. And that was intentional because I wanted the reader to gain knowledge along with her. She's working on a mystery about her great-great-grandfather, but she's also working on this other mystery about her community. And then she has a cousin who is like pro Khatna and like pretty orthodox, and then she has this other cousin who has given up the religion and is an activist. Her mother and aunt are in all different places as well around this. So that was pretty important to me to have stories about all of these women's relationships.
Yeah, I mean, I could feel that. I mean, you could see that range. You could find pieces of yourself in all of the characters, all of them. And quite honestly, like, I write a lot about my mom and my family and culture, and I could see slices of all the women in my life who are Desi, who are most, like in all of these women, which was really impactful.
Your mom, Shabana Azmi. Everybody go and watch that movie. Go and watch that movie. It's called Signature Move. And like, how did you get? We'll have to talk about this later. How did you get Shabana Azmi to play your mom? Like, that's just like something else. Anyway.
Well, the thing I'm going to say is you never know, and ask questions. And quite honestly, I feel like that's what Sharifa does in the book, is asks a lot of questions. You never know the power and the potential and the possible solutions that can come from asking a lot of questions, because eventually you're going to find someone who's like, I have a great answer, or I know how to help you solve this. And actually, that's what I love about all of your writing is it feels like there's just this mystery. There's always this mystery. Do you have influence? Are you influenced by the mystery genre in any way?
You know, not so much. I tend to read mostly literary fiction, but I will branch out a little bit, especially if I have a friend who is writing in a different genre and I want to, you know, so I do find ways to do that. And, you know, mystery is really good for figuring out how to improve your plot.
Mm.
Like people who write like detective stuff just get really tight with their plots, like they have to, right? And something to learn from, definitely. Like I recently read one of Jeffrey Round's book. You know, I'm going to forget the title, but you can look up Jeffrey Round. He's a Dundurn author as well, and I just love how plot works. So I am influenced by that, and I really try to do the page turner thing with my plot as well.
Well, speaking of
Lion's Head Revisited, thank you. Heather just gave us the answer.
Lion's Head Revisited, another great book from the publisher, and it's truly like you could feel that mystery, detective, solving, and it does keep you going, and it does keep turning pages. And I would say, speaking of page turning, let's talk a little bit about Murtaza.
Right.
And the page turning sex. Can we talk about that? Can we talk about him as a character in general? Because I have to be, can I be honest? At first, and this is because I'm a woman who's married to a woman, but I was like, okay, Murtaza, where are we going to go? Are you going to be the supportive guy? What's going to happen? Am I going to like you? Do I like you? And, I would love to hear about like what felt important to you in terms of constructing him as a character, and then why you really wanted to explore this really beautiful sex scene between them.
Yeah. Well, so Murtaza is like a good guy in the book. He's just a really good guy. He pokes and prods at issues in ways that Sharifa just wants to avoid. She's pretty avoidant in terms of her emotions and her attachment style, for the psychotherapist people out there. He's just a really stable, secure guy. And one of the things that happens in the backstory very early on in the book is that we find out that she's had an online affair a few years before the book starts, and this relationship is still in a bit of a difficult place. They're getting along. They've moved on. They've moved forward, but you know, things could be better. So I wanted to present a male character who could be all of those things. And I think I do that partly because I just want to tell men, like, here's a role model for you guys. This cis male straight guys out there, be like Murtaza. You know, Murtaza ends up being this great ally in Sharifa's emotional process later on in the book. And the sex scene is really there to show her emotional, her psychological, and her sexual healing process. Because, you know, I won't get into, I don't want to give away the spoilers, but she is a tightly wrapped ball. And I needed a vehicle, and you know, sex is a lovely vehicle for showing so many things. It's like dialogue, but through action, right? So to show how she reacts to him, how he reacts to her in those moments was really important for like developing the characters, but also just showing her process.
Well, and by the way, I if there are questions, Heather, please send in the chat. You know, we can't see any of that, but I would love to take any questions and ask them of Farzana, you know, while we're here, because I'm sure there's lots folks want to know. But I really have to tell you that, I mean, I think yes, like having a positive example of a man, and especially a brown man, is not common. Like a gentle brown man who's also aware of letting, knowing the importance of giving space for their partner to go through what they're going through and not trying to insert their own stuff into the healing journey. And also, I mean, it really took me back to like my struggles of like, how do I not feel guilt? I mean, I have had carried so much guilt just about having a body, right? Like the shame that I know is in me was like, oh, I have a body. Oh, I have a vagina. Oh, I'm having sex. Oh, I can't say the word. Oh, I orgasm. What is that?
Yes.
And so it was really, again, even though in a very different context, I felt like it was so relatable what Sharifa was going through. I can't stress that enough. You know,
Yes.
it was really, really beautiful to see her go through the journey.
That's part of why you write sex scenes too, is you show her having a body and feeling terrible or awkward or weird or all the messy about having a body and all the things that are stamped upon our bodies so young, you know. So yeah.
Yeah. It was really powerful. And well, maybe let's shift it up a little bit, because I'm waiting for Heather to send me a message if so, but
And well, while we're waiting, can I
yeah.
do a little bit of my like thank yous, because I don't want to forget to do that.
Oh my gosh, you should do all the thank yous.
Please send
That's
your questions. We're hearing from Heather that there are no questions, but we would really love some questions. So send them in, and I'm going to do some thank yous.
do all the thank yous.
Yeah, because no book is ever written alone, and no book ever moves through the world without lots and lots and lots of help. So um, let me just start here. I'm gonna be working from my acknowledgements page because I'm gonna forget a lot of people, and I'm really sorry that I'm gonna forget a lot of people, but that's just how it is. So know that you're all in my heart. So I am grateful to everyone who guided me and offered encouragement along the way. Alifia Taki, Masuma Rinalvi, Zara Patwa, Nilufur Barucha, Gulu Rangwala, Rashida Tawarsan, Savitri Dindial, Sarah Shulman, and Rashi Kilnani for double checking details or answering questions about very obscure things. Rachel Litovsky, my agent, for having my back. Also the entire Cook McDermott team for your behind the scenes work. Shannon Wibbs, my editor, who suggested new directions, caught mistakes, and will find a grammatical error in this sentence. Vivek Shreya for being an early draft reader, friend, and social media guru. Scott Fraser, Elena Raddick, Catherine Lane, Stephanie Ellis, Laura Boyle, Sophie Paslang, Barbara Bauer, freelance Chrissy Calhoun, and all the other Dundurnites who welcomed this book and worked to make it a success, and who came on after the book got printed, so didn't get acknowledged here. Alham Ali, Heather Wood, Christina Jagger. And also to the Penguin Random House Canada team, because they produced the very beautiful audiobook. I'm also thankful to the Ontario Arts Council and the Toronto Arts Council for letting me take time off from my other paid work to write, stare at the wall, and visit Dolka, which is, I wrote one of the scenes in the book from my experience of being in Dolka. I want to thank Jonah Blank, who wrote Mullahs on the Mainframe, the book we referred to, and Priya Goswami for A Pinch of Skin, a film that I also referenced in the book. And I also want to thank everyone who blurbed, reviewed, interviewed me, invited me to events, who wrote about the book in any kind of way. Yeah, that's so important. I'd like to thank all my We Speak Out and Sayo comrades who are working to end Kutna. We are part of a larger tsunami of feminists working to end gender-based violence across the globe. Readers who would like to learn more can check out wespeakout.org and sayo.com. I offer this novel as a contribution to all of this important work. My father, Shamoon Doctor, who urged me to look back. While this is a work of fiction, pieces of Abdul Ali's story were inspired by my own great-great-grandfather, Hassan Ali Dolkawala. Thanks also to the many family members who offered memories and information about him. And special thanks to Maimuna Bengali for filling in details. And for those of you who are curious about the real guy, you can check out hassanali.wordpress.com. Thanks also to Sylvana Bazette, Fawzia Doctor, Chloe Montclair, and my dog Maggie, who listened so well to me. And incredible thanks to Rayanne Naim, who held my heart and who always holds my heart while I untangled the personal and literary strands of this story.
Oh,
He's my very own Murtaza.
that's so beautiful. I love that. Oh my gosh. I mean, we'd be like hugging right now. So we're virtually hugging and celebrating from wherever we are right now, watching you and listening to you. And quite honestly, I love hearing you talk about how nothing is made alone, you know, whether it's a piece of art or overcoming something that feels like it's been a struggle or surviving anything in our lives. It takes community. It takes so many of us to get to that next season in our lives. So I love listening to all your acknowledgments. We have a bunch of questions from folks that I would love to get to, and they're kind of across the board, but I feel like this one's really fun. Will you ever release a book of poetry? Is that something you wanted to do?
Yes. I'm very hopeful. I have a manuscript that's out there that is looking for a home. Put it out there. I have it's something I've been working on for the last 5 years, and it is ready to go. And it needs you, poetry publishers. It's called You Still Look the Same.
Let's manifest that. Okay, poetry publishers, you heard this. Farzana Doctor has a great manuscript of poems.
Contact me.
Contact. She's ready. One question is about when writing the story. Did you have to ever put it aside? Did it ever become, you know, obviously there's so much of Sharifa that is, you know, fiction. Was there ever a time where you said, you know what, this is just too much. I need to step away from the writing process and take a break because it just feels too much?
Yes, there were times when my own healing stuff was happening very much in tandem with the writing. And so I did have to be like, okay, no more of this today. Let's go for a walk with the dog. It's very good to have a dog. She's such a little healer. That's why she's in my acknowledgments. So yes, definitely there were some moments. Yeah. And I think I've had that with every book that I have written, actually, where sometimes a scene is really painful and you've got to be like, whoa, like I'm empathizing so much with the character. Yeah.
Well, and another question that's come in is about, you know, communities outside of the Bora community and I would actually sort of maybe tweak the question a little bit, you know, how have communities outside the Bora community and how has the Bora community played a role in challenging practice, not just Khatna as a practice, but challenging practices that were seen as traditional and normal, but that are actually unsafe practices and unacceptable?
I think within every community, you can find the social justice change agents, right? So within the Bora community, there are a couple of groups that we speak out in the SAIOs. But, you know, in every single community that you exist in, including your very own neighborhood, you can find the activists, you can find the social change agents. And so I would say, you know, when looking at an issue like FGM, you just look for them in every community, and they're there, and you can, you know, be allies to them in the ways that they need you to be. Yeah.
So when I know you've talked, I've read you speaking a little bit about this, but I feel like it would be helpful to share with those watching and listening. When did you know or decide you had to write this book 7?
Yeah, I think it was just coming out of me, right? These fully formed fictional scenes were coming out of me. And I wasn't actually trying to write a book at that point. I was in the midst of promoting my last novel, All Inclusive. And, that's a very busy period of time, particularly when there's not a pandemic and you're like traveling and stuff.
Right.
It's
Right.
a bit easier in a
It's
pandemic.
a little different. Yeah.
Not traveling. But yeah, I was super busy, but I had to sit down with my morning cup of coffee and my notebook, and I had to just let these scenes come out of me. And so then I knew, because with it being a fourth novel, you just kind of know, oh, this is what I'm doing. This is what's happening. And of course, you can make your own choice. Like you can say, I'm going to carry on or I'm not. So I just knew that was happening, and I just carried on. And one of the things I've talked about is where it got really stressful for me is when I started to realize, oh, this book is going to get done. It's going to get published. I'm going to be promoting it, and I'm going to need to talk about these issues that I have been very kind of like in the background with, like with We Speak Out. I've been the Twitter handler, which is very behind the scenes, right?
Yeah.
But when you need to promote a book, you need to sort of stand on the stage and say, I need to talk about this issue, and I need to talk about this book, and I need to talk about my connection to this book. So it was that was when I started to get very stressed out, and I needed to like get lots of support from my friends and therapists and everybody to like sort out, what are my boundaries around this? How do you do that?
I mean, I have to tell you, that's a question I ask myself all the time still. Like, what are those boundaries? And it feels like sometimes we don't know the answer, but you have to ask the question because you are actually doing this thing. It's not just thinking about it. So I also really appreciated your book because it just helped me think about, consider, remember, and reflect what I think of my own boundaries and how I need to place some. And I think that's important for all of us as we work, whether it's, as we work through our shit,
Yes. Sometimes we don't know what the boundary is until we've stepped over it, and then we're a mess, right? And then we've got to be like, oh, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. Oh, girl, I can relate to that, Can I ask you a question?
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about why you have and this doesn't give anything away, but it's like going back to the Abdul Ali times, because you have chapters throughout the book where we travel back in time to, the lineage, the male lineage of this great figure, Abdul Ali, in the family. Can you talk about why you felt like that felt really important to talk about and bring in as a separate time period?
Yes. Yeah. So I had already been doing some research just for the family around our ancestor, and I really wanted to write about him, but I wasn't getting very far in terms of, I'm not a historical researcher. So, if someone hired an archivist or something, maybe we would get more answers. But I just found myself thinking, I don't know much about him. And if I'm going to write about him, let me try to fictionalize him, because I don't want to ruin anybody's memories of him, and fiction is more fun anyway, right? And there you can blend his fictional story into Sharifa's fictional story and really be able to understand like the connection. So the connections between past and present, legacy, inheritance. I really think that, so much of what we have today is what has been passed down over many, many generations. And so one way to show that was to bring in these, separate. It was also a way of giving the reader a break. He's a little bit of a relief from Sharifa's story. Initially, no one needs that, but as we get further on, we need a little relief. So he's a little bit of a relief, and yeah.
Well, and honestly, one of the things, and maybe this is because, I write, but I love hearing writers also talk about some of that like practical stuff of writing, right? Like you are thinking about the reader when you're constructing this, because you're like, wow, this is really intense. How do I give us breaks? How do I give us a breather? How do I make us feel like I could put it on my audio, put it in my headphones and walk around and do some chores? I'm still digesting it without having to focus on something really, really intense. Like I love hearing that part of the process as well.
It looks like we have a a 3-minute warning or something.
We do have a warning. I want to ask you one more question, and I don't know the context of this, so we can also not ask it. But someone's asked about, could you talk about the Dear Mossy column? Does that mean something to you? I do not know about this.
This is really fun.
Okay.
So Dear Mossy is a partnership between SciEO and We Speak Out, and it's a new column that I am writing. I am Mossy, and I am living the dream to be a relationship advice columnist for survivors of FGC. So survivors of FGC are asked to write in some kind of question around relationship issues or sexuality, and I will reply, and it's a monthly column, and we're trying to spread the word about it because we need people to know about it and to send us their questions, and it's so much fun.
What's the link or website, or is it an email? Where do people subscribe? How do we do that?
Go to SciEO.com and you'll find it on. So it's SAHIYO.com. SAHIYO.com. SciEO.com. That's where we can subscribe to Dear Mossy. And Farzana Doctor is the Mossy that you were dealing with. Yeah. I am in love with this. This is a beautiful, beautiful way of like connecting people and really sort of sharing stories and just sort of supporting each other. So what a beautiful take on just a circle of community. I love it. I know we're almost out of time, and there's definitely some thank yous that are still left to go. Is there anything else you want to say, Farzana, before we wrap up? Yeah, just to acknowledge all the people that are out there watching, who have pre-ordered books, who have supported me in all the countless ways that I don't even know. I just really, really, really am really honored that people are offering so much support to this book.
That is so beautiful. Well, and I just want to put out there that on Twitter, if you find me at the Fawz, THEFAWZ, the first tweet that I read about Farzana Doctor's book, promoting it, we're going to figure out a way. I'm going to send you a copy of the hard copy book or the Audible if you want, or both. It's an exceptional read. And I've actually, there's already 3 people that I need to send it to because it helps us feel joy and less alone, in this beautiful way. Thank you for writing that.
Thank you for being such a wonderful host. And I hear an invitation to tweet about the book. I always invite people to tweet about the book and to tag Fawzia Mirza in the tweet. Otherwise, you won't know that they have done it.
That's right. That's right. You tag me, you tweet at Farzana, I'm buying you a book. You get a free book. Like, there's nothing that is easy. This is easy work. This is the easy part of the work. Okay. And actually, you know what? To 2 people who do it, tweet about the book at Farzana Doctor, and I follow us both. I'm sending you a book. Okay. That's what we're doing. There are some thank yous that we have, which I'm super sad to leave Farzana right now, but thank you so much to the audience. What an amazing time this has been. And I know there's so much going on in the world, so being able to share space with us virtually is quite frankly an honor, because y'all got shit going on in your lives. So taking a moment, taking a breath and listening to Farzana's beautiful work of fiction and hearing us chat a little bit about it is amazing. So thank you. If you enjoyed this, you can share it with others later, because this is being recorded. It's going to be posted, and it will be posted with closed captioning by Akasi Christensen, and that will be on Another Story's YouTube channel. So you should probably follow Another Story as well, because what a great bookstore here in Canada. Share with your friends, your family, share with your dog if they're as amazing as Maggie. And a reminder, you can buy the book anywhere you buy your books. And if you're in Canada and you'd like a signed copy, you can do this at anotherstory.ca. So it's possible, even in a pandemic. I know people love to get the book signed. It is possible. Thank you, Farzana, for making that possible. and another story. And this is not the end. If you want to keep following Farzana's journey with the book 7, in 2 weeks on October 1st, she will be in conversation with an actor from a show you may recognize. Orange is the New Black is the show. Marie Lou Nahas. That's going to be the U.S. launch of the book 7. We're in Canada. It's fine. Not jealous. But you can find all the details about that October 1st book launch at FarzanaDoctor.com. You should go there anywhere and subscribe to everything she's doing. That's it from me. This has been so beautiful, Farzana.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.